The Bootstrap Podcast show is a production of Kangaroo Fern Media Lab, a grassroots entrepreneur-led movement to bring together, celebrate and give a voice to Australia's entrepreneurship community. On the podcast, we speak with the movers and shakers of Australia's entrepreneurship community to give a glimpse into the future of business. Bootstrap Podcast on Ozpod Syndicate.
Trav Bell is a true thought leader known as the bucket list guy. Has been helping people create and realize their innermost adventurous minds for more than 20 years. Trav, an accomplished speaker, coach and mentor, he is also the founder and CEO of the Certified Bucket List Coach. You can check him on the socials, on the website thebucketlistguy.com, on Twitter, Trav Bell, and on the Facebook, The Bucket List Guy. On Instagram, bucketlistguy.trabell, and on LinkedIn, Trav Bell.
Thanks for tuning into our podcast. We love having you here, and it's our mission to bring you all the latest and greatest tips, skills, and know-how to make you the best that you can be. We know that you have it in you, and we're going to show you how. Now, let's get started.
Please welcome Trav Bell. Welcome to the show.
Nico, stoked to be on, mate. Excellent. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for having you on our show for today. So, first thing, when you're 18, you've written a list. Can you tell us about it?
Yeah, when I was 18, I don't know, I read it somewhere to create a list a list to do before I die. So literally, I took it to heart. I'm not one of these guys that reads something in a book and then doesn't do it, or goes to a seminar and doesn't do anything. I really do implement. And I guess that would attribute to some of the success that I've had. But I don't know, I read it somewhere. Maybe it was an Anthony Robbins book or something like that. Write down a list of all the things you want to do before you die. So I was at 18, not really knowing how I was going to fund it or how I was going to do it, but just write down a whole heap of things you want to do before you die. And the top two things, in fact, were go to Mount Everest Base Camp and do an Ironman. And a whole bunch of, I think I even had own a BMW, which is not on my list anymore. I never wanted to. But, some things come on, some things go off. But no, I've always had this list to do before I die, literally written down out of my head, consciously thought out and then written down. And, fun fact that if you actually just write down goals, let alone bucket list items, let alone to do before you die items, you've got a 42% more likelihood of these things actually manifesting, of actually showing up in your life. So kids out there, listeners, watchers, write some stuff down. But, what's easy to do is easy not to do, right? So at the end of the day, I've had this list and it was always in my little blue folder. Wherever I went in shared housing and university, I always had my little list to do before I die, literally carried around with me next to my bed, and always reflected on it, updated it, crossed things off it. But it was always my compass that I recalibrated on to check in with on a quite a continual basis. And, through the ups and downs of business life, as you know, you've got to have that recalibration process. And that's what it was for me.
So the last time I watched the TEDx in Melbourne in 2016. So you said, work to live or live to work. What do you mean about that?
Well, we're talking to entrepreneurs here in your show, right? I mean, I've been an entrepreneur my whole life. I've never had a job. I started my first business straight out of third year university, and that was in personal fitness training industry. So I started with one client, ended up with tens of thousands of clients around Australia, was the first to franchise personal training studios in Australia, had a chain of 21 studios around Australia, over 2 million personal training sessions that myself and up to 300 staff, did over the course of 20 years. That was the first business. Had a bit of a breakdown before breakthrough moment through depression. defranchised the whole thing, got into what I'm doing now.
Your podcast journey starts here. Take the first step on your side. Hustle with us. It starts with a great domain. Get your podcast web host with Beard and Coffee at www.beardandcoffee.com.au or find us at Facebook.
And now as a speaker and as a coach, I'm forever telling entrepreneur groups such as what you've got, your tribe, is that a bucket list is a tangible life plan, right? Where our career plan or our business plan should fit into our life plan and not be the other way around. So this really brings home that work to live principle, not live to work. And even though that people will talk about the hustle and the grind and the big, sacrifice now to enjoy later kind of thing, what this allows people to do is really, I guess, compartmentalizing what we do in our businesses, in our jobs, in our careers. Because, really, as you know, our businesses, and hopefully this is some perspective for people, our businesses really should do two things, right? And that is to spit out the cash flow and also, Miko, the time flow to allow us, the owner, to do the shit that we want to do in life. Time flow and cash flow. So you've got to make some decisions. You've got to get off the fence. You've got to hustle harder, maybe in the short term, to get it to spit out those results. Double bonus though, if you actually love what you do and it's what you're doing out there is of service to the community, it's helping a lot of people, it's hitting your values, which is your internal, rule book, then and you love what you do, you're passionate about it. I think that's the holy grail. It's giving you the results, plus it's hitting your values. And I think there's a lot of people that can't say that. 87, I do a lot of stuff in America, and 87% of people who go to work every day don't like what they do. They're what they call disengaged. 87% of people go to work every day and don't like what they do. It's freaking nuts. So that's why a lot of people become an entrepreneur. But let's put it in perspective. This whole bucket list concept is about helping people create a more tangible reason why to get out of bed in the morning, go grow their businesses.
Do you believe in work-life balance? Does it exist?
No. Work-life balance is bullshit. Work-life balance was thrown around in the 80s and 90s into the 2000s, but nothing ever balances. Can you tell me a balanced entrepreneur, especially not in bootstrap phase? Yeah. There's no concept, like the thing is, if you're, I love, I follow Grant Cardone and I love his book actually here is Be Obsessed or Be Average. And here, this wasn't a fake Zoom background, by the way, guys. This is actually a real bookshelf. I haven't read any of these books, but but at the end of the day, be obsessed or be average. This is really cool because it really helps people. And I believe this, be obsessed about everything. When you're paying attention to something, go all in. There's no such thing as balance equals, 50% over here and 50% over there. You try and grow a business successfully and not be obsessed about it. Like you try and grow a business at 50%, being, balanced in over there. Good luck. It won't happen. But I think, try this on for size, Miko, is instead of saying work-life balance, seek your own definition of work-life blend.
This podcast is brought to you by OSPAD Syndicate, powered by Kangaroo Fern Media Lab. Kangaroo Fern is Australia's independent video and podcast management agency with a mission to help individuals and entrepreneurs to start their own podcasts and harness the power of podcasting. Book now via www.kangaroofern.com.
Right, and how the two intertwine, because we're never off and we're never on. We're kind of always on, in every area, but it's really about a time allocation, or should I say attention allocation during your day. I've just got back from the gym. I'm obsessed about the gym. My partner and I go to the gym every single night at, 4 around 4:30. Okay. And we've got goals in relation to that. And now we're not balancing. We're obsessed about getting results. All right. We're obsessed about our diet. I'm now obsessed with sleep at the moment. And these are, obsessed has a negative connotation, but at the end of the day, I'm also obsessed about my business. I'm obsessed about helping people through that business and our coaching network around the world. I'm obsessed about learning and reading. Wake up at 4:30 in the morning, and we read. I'm obsessed about getting through. One of my bucket list items at the moment, which is 52 books in a year. I'm obsessed about catching up with friends. I'm obsessed about being a great parent as well. Obsessed about being a great partner. So let's get rid of maybe obsessed and just say I'm passionate. And then it hasn't got a negative connotation, but nothing's balanced. It's just time allocation. Or more importantly, attention allocation. What you pay attention to is what really matters, right? So, and here's the thing. When people say I'm a multitasker, well, what multitasking breeds, because it's stupid, what multitasking breeds, and say, people wear it like as a badge of honor. I've got a balanced life because I can multitask. That means that when you're with your kids, you're also on your mobile phone. Great example. That's multitasking. That's a really bad example of multitasking. That's not a badge of honor. So at the end of the day, our most valuable commodity, and Gary Vee says this, our most valuable commodity these days is our attention. The key to our attention is actually shutting off distractions of everything else. So if we're working from home, for instance, your ability to create non-negotiable rules, within your day, and to go, okay, I've got a hard cutoff for gym. I've got a hard start to the day. I'm going to run my meetings from here to here. It's family time from here to here. If you looked at my day, you could say, oh yeah, that's pretty balanced. You've got time allocation for everything, but no, it's really making sure that I can pay attention to the different areas in life and go full on too.
That's going to be in relation with you saying the default versus the design. Is that going to be correlated?
But the default, no. A lot of people, what I mean by that, a lot of people are living by default, not by design. Probably not us, because we're entrepreneurs, right? We've decided to design our life according to our rules. You see a gap in the market, you create a business to serve that market, and we're designing our life to create that business to get that result for that market. But a lot of people are living by default. What I mean by that is they're following, they're in the matrix. So they suffer from Mondayitis, hump day. Thank God it's Friday, and I call it Sundayitis, that sinking feeling at, 2 or 3 in the afternoon on a Sunday before you go back to work. Again, we're told to go to school, get good grades, go to university, get a good job, become a nice, quiet, responsible taxpayer, and that's all well and good. Get a secure job, get the mortgage, maybe get 2 mortgages if you're lucky, get married, get the 2.3 kids, and off you go. That's how it's meant to play out, yeah? But, Miko, look at the stats. Depression, anxiety, suicides, youth suicides, the overprescription of antidepressants. We've even got this thing now called the loneliness epidemic, which is the adverse effect of social media. Now, these stats are climbing, and they were already climbing at crazy rates here in Australia and everywhere around the world, climbing at crazy rates. And then we go and throw COVID on the top of it, and it's just gone to crazy levels. Now, so if that's the plan, something's broken, because those are the stats. That's the evidence. So people are living by default, like told what to do and how to do it, and you're going to sacrifice your happiness now to enjoy later when you get your superannuation payout or when you forget your 401k in America. And a lot of people hang out for that day. I'll sacrifice now to enjoy later, waiting for the perfect time or someday to come around. But that obviously doesn't come around for a lot of people. So, what depresses me the most is thinking that a person has worked their guts out their whole life and sacrificed for their family and for sacrifice maybe their happiness as well, just to retire and then have 5-10 good years and then they're gone, or not even. That saddens me. That's a regretful life, or regret versus a regret-free life. So put another way, I dare say a lot of people are just existing and not living. People are, like I said in that TED talk, people are dying at 40 and being buried at 80. If you let that sink in, people that are sheeple. People who are on the Groundhog Day or on the treadmill of life. My whole thing for why I do what I do, and now our global network of coaches do what they do, is to help wake people up before they get given a use-by date. Have a midlife awakening rather than a midlife crisis.
You're saying as well is that life way is too short not to live your bucket list. Can you elaborate that to our listener and audience as well, especially the business owner, entrepreneur who is watching right now?
Yeah, I mean, what we want to do is I want people to live. See, someone called me the bucket list guy. So little backstory. I went through a bout of depression, not that severe, but not compared to some of the examples that we see around us. And instead of going on heavy antidepressants, I found myself going, no, I want to get to rather than put a Band-Aid over the top of it, I want to get to the root cause, of and really trying to understand my own psychology. So I forced myself to go to personal development events, learn NLP, life coaching, learn Akagi principle, learn law of attraction stuff, positive psychology, all this soup of learnings. And it wasn't until someone said, kind of at the end of all the money I'd spent, is like, hey, Trav, why don't you teach this stuff? And that helped me actually compartmentalize what I was going through. That's right, I'm here to teach this stuff. So I put on a talk, had about 40 people in the room. I was nervous as hell. And then at the end of it, and I started sharing this list to do before I die, the one I had since I was 18. And this is only 10 years ago. And then it inspired the group. And I was the only freak in the room that actually had one of these things written down. So it inspired the group. And then Joe, one of our clients at the time, said, how's all this list to do before you die stuff? It's like a bucket list. You're like the bucket list guy. And I went, bing, light bulb moment. Went home and registered thebucketlistguy.com, and I've been a speaker and a coach ever since, putting on events, doing keynote presentations around the world, etc., etc.
Like what you hear so far? Make sure you never miss an episode by clicking the subscribe button now. This podcast is possible by listeners like you. Thank you for your support. Now back to the show.
And now licensing out what I do, and now we've got bucket list coaches around the world. But I built all that for me. I built that to help the former me. I went full on into this whole bucket list brand and concept to help the former depressed me, because he was living a life of no real, well, at that time, not a lot of meaning, not a lot of purpose, and not a lot of fulfillment or even gratitude going on. So the concept of bucket list was a representative of, it represented freedom. It represented, being happy, going after the things that you're really happy with, and constructing a business as a result. And around that time, I read Tim Ferriss's 4-Hour Work Week like everyone else. And since then I've crossed that off my bucket list and had lunch with Tim Ferriss, and which was awesome. But at the end of the day, that whole online world was starting to come to the fore. So I had all these bricks and mortar businesses in terms of gyms, closing all that down, selling them off, and then transitioning over into this online world as the bucket list guy. I didn't know how the hell I was going to monetize it, but I knew it felt good. So I decided to just, put the blinkers on and go deep with this. But essentially it was to help me live live more, be happier, but the bucket list guy sounded a lot cooler than the happiness guy. It was a bit lame. I looked around at this whole bucket list concept, and I realized a lot of people had written bucket list and were doing their bucket list. And that was a very common hashtag thing, but a lot of it was about travel. And I'm like, hang on, well, with all these stats going on and depression climbing, and travel is what everyone wants, but unfortunately travel is very expensive. It costs a lot of time and money, and like people are going to have to wait for their whole lives to do some of those big travel things. I want people to be happier now, not wait until later on when they might not even get a chance. So I created this thing that I did the TED Talk on, which was the My Bucket List Blueprint, to help people really unpack what was in their head and help them, inspire through questioning, and unearth all the things that they truly want to do in their life. I used the concept called the My Bucket List Blueprint. And it really has helped a lot of people over the last 10 years be happier now. Like, I'm into instant gratification rather than just delayed gratification. And, I truly believe that life is way too short not to live your bucket list. And I want to help wake people up, start living their list before they get given a use by date. Simple as that. Because here's the shit thing, Miko, is when a person gets gets given a use by date, or a cancer diagnosis, or something traumatic or dramatic happens to them or a loved one, suddenly people reprioritize in a heartbeat, mate. We're stupid as human beings. It takes such an emotional slap for us to realize what we want to do. So it offers an opportunity for people to put their own oxygen mask on first before they can go and help others. I want people to use these learnings. I've got the book coming out and stuff, to take the opportunity to take time out of their life to work on their life. Not just work on their business, but this has helped pull entrepreneurs towards their goals, to grow their businesses, to make decisions, get off the fence, hire new people, get investors in. It had a crazy effect on business owners around the world.
Thank you for that. So, by the way, congratulations for the new book as well, the Bucket List Blueprint. Yes, there it is.
Yeah. This is the only copy on earth right now, because it'll be ready. Well, by the time this comes out, I don't know when it's going to come out, but it'll be ready for sale in about a week from today, the time of filming this. That's only been about 10 years in the freaking making. So, yeah. But it really goes through all the My Bucket List Blueprint, and some pretty funny stories in there. So I'm stoked that is a big bucket list tick right there.
Yeah, congratulations for that book. It's been a while, for almost 10 years before you get a book of Bucket List Blueprint. So the next question I have for you is you have 12-step formula in relation with the bucket list. Can you tell us on that 12-step formula, can you give us advice to the business owner, entrepreneur? How can they align the 12-step to their business?
Oh, look, it's really easy. Here's the thing. Where is it? There it is. Okay, so here it is. Remember back in the day, Miko, we had these things called pens. I'm being sarcastic here.
Yeah.
Remember back in the day, we used to have these things called paper. Yeah. I know, it's crazy analog concept, I know.
I still have that.
Yeah, there we go, you've got it. So if you actually, here's the thing, if you actually write shit down, right, you've got a 42% more likelihood of things actually manifesting. So number one, don't just write a business plan, write a life plan in the form of a bucket list. Go through the My Bucket List Blueprint and just take some time out of your life and just go deep with it. Write down all the things that you want to do. Watch the TED Talk, buy the book, all that sort of thing. There's there's 600 ideas in there that are tried and tested. And then I'm doing 5 things at the moment. on my list. Some take a long time, some don't take any time at all. But at the end of the day, what it does is help you.
We are Independent Podcast Network. We are Guerrilla Podcast Syndicate. Would you like to hear your brand while supporting quality podcasts? Contact us now at advertise@guerrillapodcastsyndicate.com.
Create this tangible, very personal, tangible life plan. And then what I want you to do is, I've actually got a challenge for you. And this is for you, Miko, as well as your watchers and listeners, is I want you to read the book, I want you to watch the TED Talk, and I want you to seriously email your bucket list to me, trav@thebucketlistguy.com, okay? Because I've got these special magical powers to make these bucket list items come to fruition. Now, some are going to be expensive, some are not going to be expensive, some will take a lot of time, others won't. Others are only a phone call away, others are only an entry away. But when you're writing this stuff down, like any goal, you've got to focus on the what and the why, not about the how. That's really, really important. See, a lot of people won't even, what's easy to do is easy not to do, right? So a lot of people won't even write goals down, let alone bucket list items, because it's easy not to do. It's easy to do, easy not to do. But it's also fear of success, fear of failure. So a lot of people don't write goals down because they don't want to disappoint themselves because of past whatever, past programming, or probably not your community, mate. But at the end of the day, we want to get people to write some stuff down, and that and actually writing versus writing typing into a phone, that has more of an effect, of a real effect of goal achievement versus the digital version that I just shared.
So you're saying time to wake up.
Yeah.
So aside from
life's way too short, right? Like why even have a business plan if you haven't got some form of life plan? Like what the hell? What? Because money and time aren't the end goal. They're not the end goal. They're the result of your share portfolio. They're the result of your property portfolio. They're the result of your business portfolio, right? That's what each of those vehicles do.
Yeah,
having more money and having more time means nothing.
Yeah, I totally
unless you're going to go and But here's the thing: when you go write down your bucket list items, I want you people to check in with them. And how big is your why out of 10? Right. So for me, going to Mount Everest Base Camp with my dad was like a 10, was like a 20, 100 out of 10, it was definitely a 10 out of 10. So I wanted to go that bad. I just see when the why is strong enough, the how will work itself out. Right. And it's not a matter of resources. It's a matter of resourcefulness. True.
True.
You know this from bootstrapping, man. If you're passionate about your business, you find a way of making it work. And I don't think people trust that enough in their life.
That's correct. Yeah, I totally agree with you that, yeah. So you have to have your own, if you have your own passion, you have to have a good business plan to do it.
Same as a life plan, straight up. Yep. People got to trust themselves a lot more and go after the low-hanging fruit first. Go and get the easy wins, and that creates some momentum and motivation towards the bigger ones.
That's fantastic. So to our listener and our audience who's watching right now, so as Trav said, you go to the blueprint of a bucket list or watch the TED Talk on YouTube, and then list your bucket list. And
create your bucket list and send it to me.
And send it to Trav.
And so they can, and I put this challenge out to everyone, and we're actually in the business. We're in the stages of actually compiling a book of bucket lists right now. So if you want to actually be in a book too, which is like next level accountability, and we, we'll say who you are, where you're from, what sort of business you're in. Submit your bucket list to us and see what happens.
That's great. So we got into I see you're also doing a podcast. So the Bucket List Life podcast as well. Why did you start your podcast, and what are the two or three of the biggest impact it has on your business?
The cool thing about my job is that I really do connect with some really interesting people, and probably like yourself. So it's funny because this is a bootstrapping podcast, especially for entrepreneurs. I really don't know what mine is for. I don't know my target market, but people seem to really resonate with it. And I've gone on and off. I probably need to talk to you about your services, mate. But at the end of the day, I just connect with some interest. It came out of like, oh, we're having a chat, and we've connected. And hey, do you mind if I record this? And that's how it kind of started. And but no, I've talked to. I talked to some really interesting people. Their impact on my business, some have been absolutely amazing. There's some unbelievable entrepreneurs out there. Some have got nothing to do with my business whatsoever. Some have got nothing to do with business whatsoever. So, for instance, I just interviewed a guy by the name of Dr. Sean Baker, and I'm kind of like, I'm from the personal training background, but and I was really interested because lately interested in talking to this guy because he's a doctor, been in the army, seen a lot of action, based in America, and he's like the poster boy for the carnivore way of eating, which is it's very non-vegan. So the carnivore eating, and I've tried and tested a few things recently, and had great results with my health and the family as well. And so I just wanted to interview this guy, and he's very he's been on the Joe Rogan podcast and a number of different ones, and I was just fascinated to talk to this guy. And he gave me the opportunity. I had a chat to him, and we talked for ages, and I was absolutely fascinated. And so that was, now he's created a whole business around it and stuff. So he was really interesting. I also have recently talked to the founders of Mind Medicine Australia, who are doing trials with things like PTSD and using things like DMT and psilocybin and these sort of ayahuasca and ecstasy kind of these the drugs that comes out of those. What's it called? Not DMT. Well, anyway, alternative medicines to help things. There's a lot of research. Tim Ferriss is doing a lot of stuff around that and investing in this space. These guys have had, and they're older, very well established. They got a team, board of directors, put together Mind Medicine Australia, now run an annual symposium, a conference around this, and they're getting some government funding for trials. And, they're on a mission to help combat things like depression, anxiety, PTSD in people, trauma in people through alternative therapies, and that was just a fascinating chat. Nothing to do with business, but I guess a passion turned into a foundation, a not-for-profit, huge. Through to my now business partner, Brad Sugars. Now, Brad Sugars he's the author of 18 business books on wealth, through to investing, through to definitely business. He pretty much started, was about 25 years ago, he started a company called Action Coach. Action Coach is a big global business coaching franchise in 70 plus countries, nearly 2,000 coaches worldwide. And he sort of helped put business coaching literally on the map. Is an absolute wealth of knowledge. He's actually my business partner with Bucket List Coach as well. So, always fascinating to talk to him. I talked to him this morning as well, but that podcast was absolutely fascinating too.
This podcast is brought to you by OSPAD Syndicate, powered by Kangaroo Fern Media Lab. Kangaroo Fern is Australia's independent video and podcast management agency with a mission to help individuals and entrepreneurs to start their own podcast.
Yeah. So what has been your most unexpected surprise during your podcast journey so far?
How much time it takes to put it all together. And at the risk of sounding, time in versus reward, it's an interesting journey. It takes a bit to put a podcast together and you're looking for okay, how do I monetize this? But it's just, having these conversations, putting the messaging out there and putting it out into the internet and see how it goes. Where you don't really see a direct payoff immediately with a podcast. So, for people that are looking to create a podcast, all well and good, but the ROI around a podcast is, you don't know when it's going to come, unless you have a real strategy around it, and that's probably where you can help. But no, the cool thing the cool thing that I've noticed is it really helps you connect with people like yourself, mate. That you never know. You never know where it can go, where these relationships start. And as you can see by now, people love talking about themselves, and it really allows a platform for you to connect and really help another person promote whatever they've got to promote, and for you to connect on a level that you wouldn't have otherwise connected on, which has been really cool. So, here we are. You're in Adelaide. I'm in Melbourne. We've never met before, and who knows? We might start doing business together. And it's a really, really powerful networking tool.
Right. Thank you so much. So, do you have any final advice or anything else you want to share with the startup, entrepreneur, business owner who is listening, watching right now?
I think that people are, especially in the startup community, are very flippant these days, okay? And that's not what I want to invest in. Example, people these days, now this is just in the job market, not in the entrepreneur market, but people change their jobs 15 times in their working life now. Now, 5 to 10 years ago, it was 7 times. It's doubled. People go into things, they come out of things. So all I can say is pick a highway and then pick a lane and then own that lane. Own that lane. Put the blinkers on. Go 1 inch wide and a mile deep, rather than 1 inch deep and a mile wide. And just check in with yourself and say, okay, I'm going to do this for a year, 2 years, 3 years. I think 3 years gives it a fair plan and a fair litmus test as to whether an idea is going to hit the market or not. Have that working capital until you break even, all that sort of thing, to start off with. But people have to obviously exercise more patience too. And you've got to, as an entrepreneur, this, you've got to take 6 punches and get up on the 7th. You just have to. Just because an idea doesn't fly out of the gate and work straight away doesn't mean it's a bad idea. You just got to tweak the sails, tweak the rudder and move accordingly. But stay the course.
So never give up.
Oh, well, have the level at which you tap out, because it's like an investment. Like, look at I call it a stop loss, right? We've all got a stop loss, and the stop loss is a reference from Forex trading. Okay, so a stop loss is where you go, okay, no more bets. You're putting in money into this investment, into this, this market. Into this business, and you're just getting no payoff. You keep putting it in, and you're like, okay, when's it going to bear fruit? When's it going to happen? And you can keep putting money out. Now, if you haven't got a stop loss in Forex trading, foreign exchange trading, that just takes all your money, and it'll just keep taking your money, even though you're losing money. So it won't bottom out. You just but you've got to put that bottom out, that bottom level stop loss in that basically says, hey, dickhead, stop putting money in this. It's not bearing fruit, and we're going to stop you from losing everything here. So you've got to build that into your business. I dare say build it into relationships, build it into everyone has one built in, maybe consciously or unconsciously, into their health, into their wealth. It's like, where is your stop loss in every area of your life? Business is no different, right? And so people have got to be aware of what that is. When will you know, what is that point at which you tap out, right? That's the negative. But also build in a success marker. And a success marker is when finish this sentence. I'll know I'm successful in my business when ... Now that's a really interesting, idea to think about. When will you know you're successful? Because entrepreneurs don't celebrate success, but we need to realize when we've hit a milestone. And that's a really good way of doing it.
Thank you for that information and idea to our entrepreneur and startup. Any parting word before we wrap up the podcast, Trav?
No, I mean, people can contact me, go to thebucketlistguy.com and /book now. There it is, /book, register to get a book in the next week or so, buy the book in the next, after a week after this is recorded. We're doing a launch on Amazon next Tuesday, which is in about half a week. Exciting times, long time coming. But also if people want to, suss out bucket list coach and becoming a bucket list coach and teach this, it could be a good add-on, which it has been for a lot of people in business, a good add-on to go out and teach these positive psychology principles and make money from it. It's a business in a box. It's a license, and you can do online, offline programs with people. They can go to bucketlistcoach.com and check that out. We run webinars on that every week. But hook me up on the socials, Instagram. I think we're connected on that, mate. And bucketlistguy.travbell is where I'm at there.
All right. Thank you so much for your time, Trav. So as said, all the link will be on the show notes on this podcast. So just check that out. So if you want to find Trav on the social, so you can check his website at thebucketlistguy.com. On the Twitter is Trav Bell, and on the Facebook, the Bucket List Guy. On Instagram, if you're on Instagram, it's bucketlistguy.travbell, and on LinkedIn as well, it's Trav Bell as well. So, and of course, if you go to YouTube as well, so the Bucket List Guy 2011. So so everything on that, but I'll put in a show note. And thank you so much for your time, and see you next week for another episode of the Bootstrap Podcast under Ospod Syndicate. And also thank you for the Kangaroo Firm Media Lab, a podcast management service. Thank you.
Great. Thanks, Miko.
Thank you for listening. Make sure to visit our website at www.ospodsyndicate.com.au, where you can subscribe to the show in Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, or via RSS, so you'll never miss a show. While you're at it, if you found value in this show, rate and review this podcast and share it with your friends. You can also join the conversation with OSPOD Syndicate on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Please consider on making a donation to help us keep making the podcast you love. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to us.